I'd now like to call back to order the regular meeting of the Lake Forest Community High School Board of Education meeting for March 13th, 2017. May I have a roll call, please?
Dr. Elliott?
Here.
Mr. Lane?
Here.
Mr. Mormon?
Here.
Mrs. Kryling?
Here.
Mr. Markison?
Here.
Ms. Davis?
Here.
Mr. Powers?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Start with my president's report. It'll be brief. It normally takes me a while to process information. Last month, Mr. Simic and Dr. Holland presented an update on our strategic plan, how we're achieving our milestones. I listened and I understood, but I became very proud and impressed as I processed the information. Dr. Holland presented our current year accomplishments, and they're worth repeating quickly. A new school day schedule. Anybody that's been on the board for a while remembers how much time we spent strategizing that before Dr. Holland and her team pulled it off. A new teacher evaluation model, a new PARA, Performance Evaluation Reform Act student growth model, all of the above jointly, collaboratively developed with teachers and staff. A new support staff evaluation model, an expanded food service and coffee bar, which is a big deal. 20 new courses, that alone is a lot. I don't think my high school had 20 courses that I could have selected, let alone 20 new courses in 1 year. Developing a new theater department, expanded student support and resource centers, revised homebound student tutoring, a new Navigating Educational Transitions NET program for students transitioning back to school from home, hospitals, or outplacement, which is critically important. More to do and a lot more on the table, all focusing on teaching skills for life success, self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, responsible decision-making, and relationship skills. All of those are important for not just college, but career and life. These aren't fads or flavors of the day. They aren't about a political agenda. They're about hitting our milestones, developing passionate, respectful, courageous, insightful young adults that will make a difference in their world. I'm proud to play a small part in that. So, on to the business of the meeting. Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Markison, and I would like to hand off to Dr. Holland. Are you going to talk about what happened to our kids tonight?
They're not able to attend. They are very busy, involved in sports and other activities, and we also had a student who is supposed to be on call just in case, and he also is busy. So they will be with us our next meeting. So I'll start off. Just a reminder about Screenagers. So LEAD is sponsoring an additional parent viewing of Screenagers on March 22nd in the David Miller Theater. The documentary highlights the impact of technology on student development and offers tips for supporting students in finding balance with their use of technology, something we deal with every day. The screening, as I mentioned, is on March 22nd in the DMT, and it begins at 3:30, so right after school. The only other thing that I'm going to mention is just about our assessment day, which is on April 5th. And this is a longer explanation, but I feel like it's important just to share the landscape. So on Wednesday, April 5th, we will have an assessment day where we're going to administer assessments in the SAT suite. With the adoption of a school-wide growth model, our school-based joint committee adopted a model that makes us all, faculty and administrators, accountable for student growth. A lot went into the decision to adopt the SAT suite. The state's decision to adopt the SAT opened up a school-wide conversation regarding assessments that can tell us more about who our students are as learners, how they are growing, and the alignment of our academic program with college and career readiness standards. In our discussions, we did not feel obligated to adopt the SAT suite at all, just because it's the state assessment. Our students have taken the ACT, as we all know, and they've done very well. Although we have continued to provide opportunities on site for our students to take the ACT alone does not tell us about student growth from the time students enter Lake Forest High School until the time they graduate. In our growth model, student growth from 9th to 12th grade is very important to us. A few years ago, the ACT moved away from offering a suite, leaving districts interested in understanding and assessing student learning in a longitudinal manner, left with trying to align various assessments with the ACT, which is very difficult to do. In previous times, students were able to take the Explore, Plan, and PSAE which was all a part of the ACT suite. That has gone away. Schools use that information at the time to assess student readiness and to evaluate a school's academic program in relation to the standards and the objectives outlined in the ACT. After much review and consideration, our joint committee helped to influence our adoption of the SAT suite. The new suite of assessments has been revised and captures many of the learning values at Lake Forest High School. It assesses learning rather than memorization, reasoning and application, and is directly aligned with college and career readiness standards that are directly also in alignment with best practices that we've been engaging with as a district. It also offers a valuable opportunity, one of many, of course, to measure student growth for students from 9th to 12th grade. So on April 5th, we will administer the PSAT 9, PSAT 10, and the SAT. There's no school for seniors. The assessments will provide valuable information to our district regarding student learning and will support us as one data point in assessing longitudinal growth, something that's embedded in our growth model. A few weeks ago, we hosted a screening of Most Likely to Succeed. With great conviction, the film discussed a nationwide fixation on assessing students. It also discussed the importance of 21st century skills, the importance of mastery learning, and the importance of gauging student learning and growth in a variety of ways within a school. Additionally, it spoke to the need for students to have qualitative and quantitative ways, or for schools to have qualitative and quantitative ways of assessing student growth. While the SAT suite is our quantitative measure, a lot is taking place at the departmental and course level to assess student learning and growth in other ways that we value, such as project-based learning, innovation, and exploration. It is important, one of the quotes that I remember from Most Likely to Succeed, it is important for us to engage students with their passions and a growing sense of purpose, which is outlined as the purpose of education. Our students demonstrate learning in a lot of ways, and it's very important for us to capture that. The state's assessment landscape will always change, and I personally believe that schools would be foolish to shift values and beliefs and go on a roller coaster ride with the state. That would leave many of our students over-assessed with no inherent value ever named for the district. Whether qualitative or quantitative, all assessments have a purpose, and our choice of assessments is directly aligned with what we want to know the most about our students, how they are learning, and how they are growing. The SAT suite was adopted because it's aligned with our values in our growth model, and it's currently structured to provide us with information about our students and their growth as we prepare them for Lake Forest High School and beyond. I just wanted to provide a landscape and some more contextual information regarding why we adopted the SAT suite and how we're looking at that to help us gauge student learning and growth.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Holland. It's been a very busy month for me and for Mr. Markison. We've been on a speaking tour of sorts this spring of the year, so we've been to Lake Bluff and Lake Forest councils. For myself, I've spoken at the state, done a State of the District for the 67 APT. We also have, spring of the year is when you try to get all sorts of stuff out before spring break. The newsletters have come out. We're also in the midst of a climate survey, so we have our students and staff, which we do a pretty good job of capturing feedback from them. Our parent population remains a challenge for us. I think as of today, we are at 9% or something like that. We're at 20? Oh, we're at 20. We finished at 20, so the elementary is at 9% currently, I think. Right. So it's difficult. The Comprehensive School Climate Indicator developer wants us to be north of 30% for that. So it's always a struggle to get parents to find their way through the entirety of the survey. We've also, as Dr. Holland mentioned, shown Most Likely to Succeed, which concludes our film series for the year. I also want to put in a plug for Screenagers. If you feel like you or your kids have been kidnapped by their phones, the Screenagers does a very nice job of speaking not just to student attraction to these devices, but also what goes on in the adult brain and why all of us are attracted to these screens. This is a third showing for this movie, so it continues to attract a pretty good population of folks that are interested in it. There's one report after the next coming out these days about what's going on, why we are so attracted to our screens, and the way that these things are interrupting the way our brains work. Our own Dr. Elliott could probably speak to us about some of that, but there's a dopamine shot that we get when we pick up our phone. There's better and better documentation of that. The final thing I wanted to mention was Dr. Holland last time mentioned on the screen over there the dashboard, the district dashboard, and the board has been in conversation about what kind of reports should we ask about, what kind of things should we be looking for from the administration to give us a better window into some things going on in the academic program. And there are a number of places from that data dashboard that makes sense to start, data that's already being collected. So what kind of career connections do students have? There's a personalized learning plan. Also, there's a number of pieces that we could discuss there. Athletics, we heard from last month, but also what's the state of our attendance and what kind of trend do we want to be looking for? The voluntary service that our students do, what kind of volunteering do they do across the community? The industry certifications, what are available to our students, and how many of our students avail themselves of that? How many of our students participate in extracurricular activities, co-curricular activities? All these things are strong indicators of involved student body and also create means of attachment for kids. Then finally, what sort of participation do we have in AP and dual credit across the district? So those are some of the things that are already planned within the building. They're collecting data. Dr. Holland showed us the student use of the support centers that have been created across the building already. That's another one of these important pieces that we have, but I thought that was a good place to start and just use that over the course of the year to bring the board along on different things that are occurring within the academic program in support of students.
Mike, I have a question. For the surveys, that seems like really low participation. How are the parents invited to participate?
I'll ask Mrs. Whipple to address that.
Often and consistently through the time. We actually extended the time that parents had available to it. It's through the e-newsletters, as well as we speak at most parent meetings about it and encourage people to go. I also reach out to all the parent leadership groups and ask them to remind their membership to do it as well. But I think we send 3 or 4 reminders to every single parent that's listed in our database, as well as extending the deadline because our numbers were low. I think by the very end we were a little bit north of 20%, which we did better than 2 years ago. We also staggered 67 and 115, hoping to get better response. What Mr. Simic alluded to today, I was pulling some numbers on 67. They also have a low response rate. It's a long survey, but it does correlate nationally, so we can't change that. So as I say, we do probably 2 reminders a week with a link that they can go directly to the survey.
Is it 20% of families or individuals? How are you classifying that parent participation?
It's 20% of the families that we have in here. So, theoretically, we could do much better.
Yeah, and I'll be the first to confess, I couldn't do it. I tried twice. The questions that they ask, they specifically asked for my feelings on how teachers respond to certain situations, and I have no experience in that. Yeah. So, that's what's caused me to send my email to you a month ago. I then tried to be a member of the Good Guy Club and erase my brain and do it again, and I couldn't. Right. It was incredibly frustrating, and I can't be the only parent that felt that way.
And we agree with you. We think, and I don't want to speak for staff, but I think that they've seen from a staff and student perspective, but this is the parent piece that comes with it. So if we are continued down the road with this survey, we cannot change or amend the parent piece of it. Thus is why we try to do it every other year to, hopefully get a little better response.
What's the average from neighboring schools? Did they do the same survey? Did they get a better
Right.
response ratio?
From the survey company who we work with, they say that their averages are between 30 and 40% response rate. I've talked to.
Starbucks cards, or,
I've-
I mean, is there a way to
no,
incentivize
they just,
people
it
to-
just is, that the parents tend to take the longer survey and do it, which I cannot explain why, because we have a intelligent population that likes to give feedback, but there, I don't have any studies as to why not, other than I keep asking the survey company, what do others do? Just remind people is basically what they say.
So along those lines, are they getting the same questions? I mean, are the
Yes.
surveys built similarly? so
They're
that-
absolutely the same, because that's how they nationally norm them. If we started eliminating questions or eliminating some of the repetition in it, they build the survey, and we do not have jurisdiction over changing the parent survey in any way.
Okay, and also along those lines, as far as communication, are you allowed to use the APT directories or would that be a,
Well, what we have is our
or use.
database through registration, so we have every parent who is signed up basically has an email, so we use that database. And then what I do, which is kind of a step over and above, is any of our parent groups asking them to remind their membership, because between Pals Applause and Boosters and APT, it's just a second kind of a nudge to say, please make sure everyone does this.
I have one other idea. You could ask the students to forward it to their parents and say, please complete this.
homework?
And the students do take it in school as well as staff members take it.
I mean, we so rarely get email from our kids. We're always shooting it
Shooting it
at
out
them.
there, too.
And to get one back, it would really get my
If-
attention.
If they ask you to do it too. That's a great idea. We could certainly try that next time around. Is that-
Thank you. I think you possibly also could try to make sure you have both parents' emails, or that, maybe it's the capture of emails
Right.
that's also the issue.
And that is through registration. We ask for a primary email, which is what we get. And this is the first, since we've had InfoSnap, the new registration, we now have a greater percentage of emails, which hopefully helped us bump our numbers a little bit from the time.
Can we ask for primary and secondary emails?
I don't know. That's more of a Brittany question. That I'm not registration, but I could certainly find out if we could set it up that way and that we could get multiple emails, and maybe that would help in the future. Certainly. Right. And some that don't too. So those would certainly, I do say our numbers this year were a little better than last year, and we're not far off of what the minimums are. So hopefully the information that we'll get back will be useful to us as well. It was even useful at the 20%, but you do like to meet the minimums to make sure it's statistically significant.
All right, thank you.
Well, I have one other question. Oh, mine's on. That's all right. So, in talking about all of the dashboard information that you would provide, we're of course always hungry for information. I want to be respectful of time and staff burden. So, one of the things that at the last, I think it was the last Education Committee, we got to see a little bit of the work that's being done to customize ECRA to provide dashboards to various user groups, including the board. And my hope is that the majority of the information that involves student participation, a lot of those metrics, is being fed directly, as opposed to asking somebody like the athletic director year in and year out to mine all that data on a repetitive basis.
Yeah, it's a very good follow-up and a good question, too. The reason, excuse me, the reason for the suggestion is actually because I followed up with Tim Burkhalter after the last meeting, said, hey, how much additional work was that? I said, we've been collecting that all year in the building, and it was really pulling it together. It provided an impetus to do that part of it, but it wasn't a great deal of additional work. So credit to Dr. Holland and the team in the building. These are things that they're already building, and that's the reason for the suggestion. So rather than duplicative work, to show meaningful work that's already ongoing in the building seemed to be a sensible thing. Yeah. So these are all parts of what will be on the ECRA data dashboard already, and to bring the board along with those things and then adjust from there, what other kinds of things should we be looking at, okay? Mm-hmm.
Are there any members of the public who would like to address the board? None. We have a report. Our first report is our security report, already queued up. Scott.
Thank you to the board to allow me to address you again on 2016-2017 school year security update. As you know, these are all post-construction changes. We've been living with it since August now, so I think we're pretty much in a good situation. This is the Welcome Center / greeters room right here. You can see these two doors. These doors are, we finally got the bugs worked out of these where once you're in this area in the Welcome Center, you can't just bolt through the doors and get into the academic or the administrative side. And we have a fob right there, so all personnel who work in the building can get in and out these doors. This is the security office where Officer Grum and myself, I took a picture of his desk only because it's the messier one, and we're right next to the Welcome Center, so we can see everybody coming in and coming out of the Welcome Center as well. And what's kind of unique with this situation is on his desk he has a police base station radio, so we can monitor all the emergency traffic in the area, and as well he could contact somebody or the police department directly if we had an ambulance call or emergency calls and stuff like that, but you don't have that a lot. And this is just, this is obviously the Welcome Center hosts our visitor management system, which is called the Raptor. And you all know that that's probably, visitor management is the single most important part of safety and security. I'm not aware of any high school today, especially in Northern Illinois, that does not have a visitor management system. From the beginning of the year till now, we've already scanned in 3,500 people. And I would imagine by the end of the year, we're going to be close to 4,000 or a little bit more. When you look at the totality of that, that's a lot of people coming through this building on a daily basis. What's nice about this system is that we can log in our own people as well. If there's special alerts in a neighborhood, we've done it with trespassers, maybe people with orders of protection, so that if those people come in the building, it will alert myself, Officer Grum, and probably 5 other people as well. The booster store, I had to add this picture because this was the old one, and this is the new one. And if this doesn't enhance the front of that lobby area when you walk in, I don't know what else we could do. This is even beyond my wildest dreams when we started talking about this. This old thing down here was in an academic hallway where obviously kids were learning and parents were going in and out of there. This allows us, it allows anybody in the community to come in on a daily basis when they're open without having to go into the academic section of the building. And they don't have to be checked in. They can come in, and parents do it. In the beginning of the year when this opened up, it was fantastic to see the amount of support from the public being able to pull up and run in and get stuff. And it was very busy at Christmas time as well. They've done a phenomenal job in there, the booster people, with that. And it is really a safety and security initiative as well. This is kind of like the camera updates. And I put this in there just to kind of explain that these blue cameras, now all of these are cameras like on this one particular floor. The difference with the blue is that I was trying to show you, it's a screenshot actually of my monitor, that these are where motion is. So what's really nice is now with the Welcome Center in place, so we're staffed there till 9:30 at night every night. And that security individual can see this, and then she can go and click on this right on that camera to see what is going on in that part of the building or in that hallway. So it really saves a lot of time as far as having to look at, 120 camera views. She can just do the mapping of the floors and go right to that section. So it's kind of a unique system. We also added in the last week a tracking part to the software that we can actually track people through the building live as well as archived. So it saves us a lot of time for looking for somebody's backpack or lost computer like I've done the last 3 times this week. So these are future plans. I'm going to let Officer Grum talk about this because he's got some initiatives he'd like to share with you as well.
A few years back, we started a one-day-a-year training with the police and fire department and the school district. We'd like to continue that and expand it. The fire department, the first year we did it, it was just Lake Forest Police. The second year we did it was Lake Forest Police, and we added Deerfield and Highland Park and Lake Bluff, being that if something were to ever go wrong, these communities would be helping us out, so it's only logical that we are training with them. Last year, the big addition was the fire department. Our fire department is training paramedics to be what's called a rapid deployment medic. They are paramedics who are going to be able to enter a scene when something is actively going on and assist people. It's kind of state of the art. A lot of places aren't doing it yet, but more and more are. Before this was implemented, everything would have to be safe for the paramedics to enter a building. We would have to, as policemen, make sure it was safe. Now they're right alongside, they're with us, and we're able to get to people or people that would be hurt quicker. Implement emergency response packets. This is an idea I got from a school safety conference I attended. Basically, the high school has names for classrooms and other rooms in the school that aren't widely known, like the incubator and stuff like that, where emergency responders, other than myself, are not going to know. So we're updating our fire extinguisher boxes with an envelope that's sealed with evidence tape so it can't be tampered with. So if a paramedic or a policeman enters a school from any entrance, they'd be able to pull that out of the fire extinguisher box, and it will have not only all our room numbers, but it'll have the common names that we as users of the building use in these classrooms. It makes it easy for us to find our way. Most of our paramedics and policemen aren't in the building enough to really know where they're going all the time, so that'll help with that. There's a few different school safety conferences we're looking at attending this summer. Some of them are done by professionals who work in school safety. Others are done by organizations such as NASRO, which is the group that kind of regulates student resource officers. But the cool part is they both offer the conferences are open to both police and security directors. So it's something me and Scott are kind of trying to lock down, the one that's got the most interesting breakout sessions and stuff that we're interested in to be able to attend. CPTED is, I don't know if you know what that is, it's crime prevention through environmental design. It is a kind of a hot new thing in not only schools, but buildings being built. And all it is being trained to see what we can do better in building design, landscape design, grounds design, fencing, all that stuff, in order to prevent crimes from occurring. And that's something that we usually, when you're certified in doing, that's something you do a walkthrough of your schools yearly and kind of tweak and stuff. And the plus is a lot of the ideas are more common sense and they're not costly. It's the way staff are positioned, facing out so they can see people coming in rather than facing a wall or something. So it goes through a lot of different things just to make us more environmentally aware of what's going on in a school. And then my biggest kind of push that I've started that I'm hopefully going to get off the ground for next year is to integrate our lockdown training into facility and student curriculum. Most schools are doing this. We do it to an extent where we're doing it every few years. I would like to try to integrate it into something where it's all incoming freshmen get that training. We've learned that the lockdown training that we offer for schools, it's also helping the kids out in the public, malls, theaters, every place they go. A lot of what we teach in our lockdown training can be applied in those situations as well. And it's an area where we're seeing this kind of stuff happen more and more, not only in schools, but everywhere in our communities. So we're going to try to get that off the ground next year is my goal.
Ben, is that similar to like active shooter in the building? Is that what the lockdown training is?
Correct. It's It is what it is. And I've been to 3 or 4 different classes because the Department of Homeland Security has Run, Hide, Fight. I forget, another organization has Hide, Run, Fight. They have their, and then the third one is Alice, which is a little bit more.
Doesn't sound very threatening.
It, believe it or not, is the most threatening. It's a very proactive approach to active shooters, and a couple places have adopted the Alice model. It's something that we got to look at not only as a police department but as a school and decide exactly if we like what we're doing or if it's something that we need to change. I think the biggest thing is to get people thinking about it, because it's hard from my experience in teaching it. Everybody wants you to come in and give them the fire drill explanation. Okay, if the building's on fire, we get out of here. That's what we do. In active shooters, depending on where you are, what's going on, it's not that simple. Yeah, it's something you have to think about. There's a dynamic to it that you have to embrace and be able to change your plan and your thought process as an event unfolds. So I think the biggest thing isn't what model's the best. It's getting it to the kids. These are your options. This is what we can do. This is what we should do in different situations, and get them thinking about it. That's what we do as policemen. Every time we go on a traffic stop, every time we go on a call, we step back and go, okay, what if this went wrong? What if this happened? And we prepare ourselves for if it does. So that's kind of what we'd like to do with the kids.
Yeah, that's always an issue. I believe that when Carol White had looked into that, it was actually like an architectural. I mean, I think you'd have to have the architect to redo all of the numbering and the system. Plus, is our fire alarms, notifications. The smoke detectors all have an address, and all the cameras have an address. So it's probably, and I couldn't begin to figure out how we would do that. Well, it's not as easy as it looks, yeah.
Yeah, 6 years ago and in there, I still don't have it figured out.
I have a booster question. The new store is lovely, and yes, having sat on the booster board, I know that the numbers this year have been great, and they're so happy that the public can get in and the parents can get in, and it's great not to have to wander the halls to find the closet in the basement. Are this kids, our booster numbers are saying the kids aren't coming in because they have to go through the door. Have you guys figured out a way to give them access into the booster store without violating all the wonderful security protocols?
Typically what happens when the kids go through there is they have to get buzzed back in, and they don't like that. But technically, with it somewhat quasi-open campus that we have, they have to do that anyway. When they leave, they're technically supposed to come back in through the front door and be buzzed in. Now, we have somebody stationed in the Commons that kind of helps facilitate that a little bit with the kids going to and from lunch. So yeah, I've heard from some of the kids that they don't like the fact that they have to go out into that lobby and then get buzzed back in. I'm really not willing at this time to declare time where they can go in and out, because with the block schedule and the lunch periods and stuff like that, we could just, I don't feel comfortable just opening the door so they can get in and out. They just got to go in there, and when they come back up to the thing, I mean, Priscilla lets them back in. It's not as quick as it used to be where they could hang out downstairs, so that, absolutely understand that.
The kids are in the Commons as well a lot, especially during the lunch periods. I would love if there's like pop-up shops, different theme days. I mean, our athletics, spring sports, winter sports, different experiences. I think the kids would like that too. If maybe there are stations or something that's happening in the Commons where students are during the lunch periods, that sort of encourages them. And we can look at discounts, 20% off on Fridays. I mean, everyone's dressed in our school colors anyway. I think it would be a good boost to school spirit.
I will pass that on.
Generally, how do you like, I mean, is the space functional? Is it doing what we thought it was going to do in terms of the interaction and the flow and all that?
Yes, we had some bugs in the beginning of the year where you could get into the hallway from the Welcome Center without anything, without being buzzed in. But the teachers couldn't get into the Welcome Center from the hallway. And it didn't make a lot of sense to me. It was absolutely designed that way. It's something that slipped. But we were able to rectify that, which it makes much more sense now. I mean, the people who are in the hallway or in the building have already been checked, or they work there. I want them to be able to have free access into the Welcome Center. I think it kind of gave them a feeling that they were being kept out of something. So when we changed that now, it seems to be a much more easy flow. That was really probably the biggest bug that we had, and it took a while to get fixed.
What I can add to that is, last year we added the police radio to the school. The reason for that was so we could hear what's going on as it was going on in the high school. I can tell you now that we're upstairs, front and center, we've used that more to contact, like if a kid gets hurt and we need an ambulance or something, we've used that radio more to contact the police and fire department saying, hey, we need an ambulance, than finding out about something that's happening in a building we're in. So we are in the middle of everything, and we are catching wind of everything going on a lot quicker than our closet next to the booster store closet in the basement. So.
That was a great location.
I have to say also that Priscilla has never let me in without going through the Raptor process. I have tried charming her. I have tried dropping the board thing. No, I have to give her my license every time. She has never broken.
Uniformed policemen have gone through that Raptor system, so she's good.
Sally, I'll take care of that tomorrow. That's not a problem.
Finance or Ed?
Finance did not meet. Our next meeting's April 12th, 7:30 a.m. West Campus.
I don't think Ed's met either, Lisa. Or
Yeah, actually, our last meeting was the day after the last board
Oh.
meeting, so I do have a report. Yeah, we met on Valentine's Day. The first thing was I just made an announcement based on our board workshop that we had in February, where one of the documents that spoke to me was the 8 characteristics of effective school boards, and the first 3 of them really addressed the mission of the Education Committee. And so I wanted to share that with the committee, and I'll share that here, that the board is expected to be effective, to focus first on a commitment to a vision of high expectations for student achievement and quality instruction. Second, that we have shared beliefs and values about what is possible for students and their ability to learn. And third, that we are accountability-driven, spending less time on operational issues and more time focused on policies to improve student achievement. So I really took that as our marching orders for the kind of data that we're looking for, and hopefully the guidance that we can provide to this district. So then we also had a very informative presentation from the Ed Tech team, who are working under Alan Wallert to identify a learning management system. So it is a little disturbing to realize that there's different classrooms are using different systems, teachers to post course materials, to receive assignments, and so on. And so a student may have to learn multiple systems for different classes, and that's not efficient and it's not up to date, as I think Shayla and Alan recognize. And so there's a good process in place for identifying a new learning management system. There's 50 teachers involved in piloting 3 different platforms this spring, and they seem to have a really good process for evaluating them, and they plan to make a decision in April and May. And so hopefully our students will only have to deal with one management system going forward for their computers. And then the second topic of conversation, we had Dr. Sparron from ECRA give us an update on the work that they've been doing for about the past year now. One project is the development of a data dashboard, which will give school leaders a consolidated view of the key performance indicators that allow us to track college and career readiness, as well as create a portrait of the typical Lake Forest High School graduate. Another ECRA project is developing an online personalized learning profile, PLP, which Dr. Holland mentioned, I think, in her presentation. I like that, Dr. Hala, to the board last month. And so that will give a individualized picture of each student's not just academic growth, but also their extracurricular involvement, social emotional learning, career interest, and exposure. And as a parent of a senior, I noticed that that would be pretty valuable for students filling out college applications. So a lot of valuable data processing in the works that we look forward to seeing more about. And our next meeting is on April 18th.
Liaison reports. Sally, anything to report on EdRed?
Only very quickly. There were a couple of, again, attempts to reach a grand bargain in the state of Illinois that did not come to fruition, and I'm going to pause here for Mr. Powers to make a cynical remark. The only other development of note is that the Chicago Public Schools, when the bipartisan commission that had promised to at least propose legislation at the beginning of February failed to do so, the city of Chicago then almost immediately filed a lawsuit against the state of Illinois, Chicago Public Schools, alleging that the state of Illinois' funding mechanism as a whole is unfair, and it is violative of the civil rights of minority students because they provide such a large portion of the Chicago Public Schools. Nothing has happened in that lawsuit since that time other than the state of Illinois freed up a little money so that they could stay open. It's interesting in light of the fact that there are many states now where similar lawsuits have been filed. Just recently, the state of Kansas Supreme Court found that that funding system was inherently flawed, again, on the basis of racial prejudice, of underfunding minority populations. Kansas has a different constitution than Illinois does, but the state of Michigan has also filed a lawsuit. So I think that that will be the only thing that we're going to see happen in the next 6 months is developments in relation to that. I am officially giving up hope that there will be a grand bargain.
So I'm not the only cynical one.
Okay, NSSCD. Ted, anything to report?
NSSCD, the council met last Wednesday. It was a pretty full meeting. Mr. Simic joined us representing the Northern Region Superintendents. It was good to see him there as well. We were also lucky to have Madeline Wills joined us through Skype and made a presentation. For those that don't know her, she was one of the original founders of special ed and pushed for the original legislation in 1975. Her husband, you might know, is George Will, public commentator and writer. She gave a broad-based presentation on how special ed was first recognized and started to be pushed and, more importantly, funded, which is always the bigger issue. And, there's been so many iterations. It started off with FAPE, which was a desire for free and public education. It took me a while to get all these acronyms down, so there'll be a test shortly after. But anyway, FAPE led to IDEA, and IDEA, you hear a lot about, we talk about IDEA funds. I just thought it was a great idea, but it's really Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. And there's been, in the last 20 years, a push to fully fund it, and the federal government has said they would fund 40% of the cost of students, and so far they're up to fully funding about 16%, which is a great improvement. And Mr. Simic loves to run around Washington and hand out bills to congressmen saying, here's what you promised us. And so, we'll take a check anytime. He hasn't gotten one, to the best of my knowledge. But anyway, free and public education went to IDEA. And then, the big thing now is inclusion, which is what we want. Kids that are included that we serve at home, they say the cost is about $20,000 per student. Kids that go outside are $40,000. We're fortunate that we're part of a consortium, which NSSED, which another acronym, Northern Suburban Special Education District. 18 districts are a part of it, and we all help fund it. And it does the training that we can't do in-house, or provides the education. And then there are cases where even they can't handle it, and you need specialized programs. But now we're fortunate. We kind of got behind the 8 ball a little bit, but now with Dr. Jenny Sturpin, we're getting on top of this again and trying to bring more kids in-house. And Dr. Allen, you can correct me at any time, but our real push is it's the best thing for the kids if they can be taken care of here in their local community where they're comfortable, where they know each other. And our other kids are very supportive of kids. It's really nice to watch. You'll even see it at graduation, how somebody going across receiving a diploma, and if somebody with a pretty strong IEP, the other kids are raucous in celebrating that accomplishment. NSSED, I'm also on the board of the foundation. On May 21st, we're going to have a 5K run, walk, or just show up and give money. We don't care. But this is the second year we're doing it. The first year was pretty good, raised about $5,000, and that money was used to, we bought a couple of coffee carts that are in malls that kids from special ed district, work it, and it provides them with great skills, and they provide a service. It's very well received, but we'd like to get it even bigger this year. So, I promised I would run the first 200 feet, and then I'm about done. But again, and on the other front, we're having a new board leadership council take over in July. And the leadership of the council, Suzanne Sands, District 67 representative, is taking over as president. So again, we'll have strong support. Deborah Hyman will be vice president, and Lori Goldstein as secretary. And then assuming I'm reelected, I'll still be on the council. That's all I have. Thank you.
We now move on to the action items, part of the agenda. First item on the agenda is an approval of an Olson Transportation contract renewal. Is there any background or commentary we need to hear on this? Jennifer?
Sure, I'm happy to give some. We do renew our contract with Olson on a year-to-year basis. As you'll notice, this is a little bit early in the year. What we're actually looking for is a little adjustment in the pricing for 16-17. And that's due to a couple of reasons. Right now, the market is extremely tight for anybody that's driven by a bus depot. Lately, they are offering bonuses and increased wages because it is hard to secure drivers. In addition, when we did change our high school start time to the later start time, we are not able to share as many routes with Lake Bluff. That also required Olson to pick up additional buses to make the number of routes. So they've experienced some rising costs and has asked for some assistance by a partial year adjustment. We have looked at the finances of that, and we do concur. So you'll see that as recommendation 1 in your packet is an adjustment for 16-17. At the same time, we wanted to wrap up the pricing for 17 and 18. As you've noticed, if you've been following some of the newspaper stories of our surrounding districts, you've seen some pretty significant increases in prices, as much as high as I believe I've seen 31%. at one particular district. What we're looking at here is actually, and this is a correction from what I've sent previously, is a 16.5%. I sent some late information to the board this afternoon. I think I misheard something in a conversation with Olson. I thought they said a $10 reduction in the route, and they said a reduction to 110. So it was a little bit of a difference there, which is approximately going to be a $33,000 increase next year over our costs this year on our regular routes. So Olson has been a good provider. It is a very tight industry. If we wanted to look to bid, I doubt that we would get anyone at this point in the year. We do run about 50 buses every day, so someone would need to acquire the buses to do that business. But certainly that's something we could look at in the future if we desired.
We're going to take a motion, and then we'll have comments and questions. So may I have a motion to approve the Olson Transportation Contract Renewal?
I move that Lake Forest Community High School District 115 Board of Education approve the Olson Transportation Contract Renewal.
Okay. Any questions, or do we do a second? We do a second.
Second?
Yeah, second? Okay, now questions.
Jen, what percent of the cost of transportation is paid for by the users?
You know what, that's not a number that I have on the top of my head. We do track it, so when we look at student fees every year, we look at that collection as compared to our total expenditures. So that is something that Brittany pulls together, and we could have that when we approve fees this year if you like. But no, I don't know the number off the top of my head.
Okay. Because that'll be helpful. The next conversation we're going to end up having is fees, right? So this increase will be directly connected to fees, and we've tried to be really responsible about that, and so I think it's important that we try to understand that. The other question I would have is, what is the ridership, right? Because we have a lot of families that would pay for use of the bus, but not necessarily use it other than maybe 25% of the time. That's my hypothesis, but do we know that, or can we know that by the time we have this corresponding fee discussion, which I assume will be at the next Finance and Ops meeting?
Right. Anyone who has paid for busing, we do route. So we do have a head count assigned to each route, so we can tell you the number of students that are assigned. We don't track the students on a daily ridership, so we don't scan them to see, you know, of the however many that are assigned to that particular road either to or from on that particular day. I think you're accurate that all students that are paying for the bus are not riding it on a daily consistent basis, because I think these are high school students and their schedules vary quite a bit. So maybe some days they ride in the morning, some days in the afternoon, maybe some weeks or some seasons, perhaps based on some of your athletics or extracurricular activities, they don't ride at all. Some use it just for emergencies. Maybe they have other methods to get home, but once in a while they need to catch the bus. So it is hard to say on that daily basis. I can certainly tell you the head counts by route.
Yeah, which would be helpful. I mean, look, we have to have a bus company. We've talked about this over the years. We need a viable bus company, right? The fact that they need to be sustainable and they need to be profitable, all those things are important. But I also think we need to do a better job of really understanding what our consumption is. And I don't know that we're there yet necessarily. And so this is obviously important, particularly for this year, and the fact that we're approving it for next year also without some of that meaningful data is a little, got the cart before the horse, kind of, sort of, in my opinion, but it is what it is.
And also with the, now with the new block scheduling, Wednesday and Thursday, we're still running a secondary bus in the morning?
Yeah, Wednesday and Thursday had no impact because actually what you purchase with that is a block of time. So they're running one route on Thursday and they're turning around and running the route again, so we don't get a second charge for that. It's because it's within the same block of time. It's not like it's a delay of 2 hours. No, it's not that big of a block. But the only thing we're paying, the only charge that we're getting for that second route on Wednesday and Thursday is the fuel. The driver's
okay, and do we know what the fuel charge? Because
it varies by month. It's on our monthly bill because it's an actual pass-through on consumption, and fuel, as you know, changes daily. So, yeah.
Right. So, but the second run, it'd be helpful to know what the fuel cost is on average, or monthly.
Yeah, you could pull it and determine the number of miles and do a mathematical calculation on an average if you like.
Okay, they don't break it down then, they just give a
No,
total
we
fuel
get,
bill.
we get a bulk fuel charge by month based on the total miles driven by all buses. It's not like it's by route or by bus or anything like that. It's all buses, all routes.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Mormon?
Aye.
Mr. Lane?
Aye.
Mrs. Kryling?
Aye.
Dr. Elliott?
Aye.
Mr. Markison?
Aye.
Mr. Powers?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Approval of a student settlement agreement for student A pertaining to special education, and that superintendent is authorized to sign the agreement on behalf of the board. May I have a motion to approve the settlement agreement for student A pertaining to special education, and that the superintendent is authorized to sign the agreement on behalf of the board?
I move that the Lake Forest Community High School District 115 Board of Education approve the settlement agreement for student A pertaining to special education, and that the superintendent is authorized to sign the agreement on behalf of the board.
May I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Any comments or discussion, questions? May I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Lane?
Aye.
Mr. Powers?
Aye.
Mr. Markison?
Aye.
Mrs. Kryling?
Aye.
Mr. Mormon?
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Dr. Elliott?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next, there's some policy approvals. Approval of Press Issue 93, the second reading. May I have a motion to approve the second reading of Press Issue 93 as presented?
I move that the Lake Forest Community High School District 115 Board of Education approve the second reading of Press Issue 193 as presented.
May I have a second?
Second.
Any questions? Anything we should know about any of these policies?
But the only thing is, I didn't make this morning's meeting, and
We heard.
Diana and David took over and did a
Good
great
for
job.
you.
It was short.
Good. Okay. Thank
But
you.
this was not part of it.
May I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Markison?
Aye.
Dr. Elliott?
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Mormon?
Aye.
Mr. Powers?
Aye.
Mr. Lane?
Aye.
Mrs. Kryling?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next is approval of the Human Resources Report. May I have a motion to approve the Human Resources Report as presented?
I move that the Lake Forest Community High School District 115 Board of Education approve the Human Resources Report as presented.
A second?
Second.
Any comments, questions, thoughts, anything on the detail? Nothing? May I have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Mormon?
Aye.
Mr. Lane?
Aye.
Mrs. Kryling?
Aye.
Dr. Elliott?
Aye.
Mr. Markison?
Aye.
Mr. Powers?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next are the items on our consent agenda. A reminder that any item may be removed from the consent agenda at the request of any board member. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda items, including approval of disbursements, payrolls, and financial statements for January 2017, the minutes of a regular meeting of February 13th, 2017, the minutes of an executive session from February 13th, 2017, disposal of audio recordings from April 14th and April 16th, 2015. Motion?
I move that the Lake Forest Community High School District 115 Board of Education approve the consent agenda items as presented.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
May I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Powers?
Aye.
Dr. Elliott?
Aye.
Mrs. Kryling?
Aye.
Mr. Mormon?
Aye.
Mr. Markison?
Aye.
Mr. Lane?
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next, just a quick update on FOIA requests. We have a FOIA request from Hillary Till, resident, status is complete. FOIA request from Joanna Marshall, resident, status is complete. And one pending FOIA from Nancy Thorner, resident. Very few announcements. Spring break, March 27th through March 31st. School reopens on Monday, April 3rd. And our next board meeting is Tuesday, April 4th, the second day after school starts up again. Right here, same meeting, LFHS boardroom, 7 p.m. in the West Campus. So may I have a motion to adjourn the Lake Forest Community High School Board meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion, meeting adjourned.